Warning: the material discussed in this show may be sensitive or a trigger for some listeners. Strong language and topics are discussed. We talk with active duty service members and practice OPSEC at all times. You have been warned.
The Bipolar DM, Jason Cottam. His show talks about Dungeons and Dragons, indie writing, and living with a mental illness, in particular bipolar disorder, borderline disorder, and major depression, among other diagnoses. Check us out right here on Saturdays, 7 p.m. Eastern, also on WLFE-DB.com, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. So take a seat, sit back, and get ready for the Bipolar DM.
Welcome to the Bipolar DM show. I am your host, Jason, the Bipolar DM. This is a show about Dungeons and Dragons, indie writing, and living with a mental illness, in particular bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, and major depression, among other diagnoses. If you want to reach us, you can contact us by email at thebipolardm@gmail.com. My webpage is thebipolardm.com. There we have resources available for mental health, Dungeons and Dragons, and indie writing, as well as links to my live shows, the other shows I have in addition to this, as well as my blog and my podcast, which does still exist. Facebook, we do have a Facebook fan page, and the handle for that is @BipolarDM. That's a little bit more up to date than my webpage because it's easier for me to keep up to date with it from my phone or from my tablet. And I'm able to post videos and articles and other contents on there on a regular basis. Check us out on not only on Facebook, but on WLFE-DB.com. And check out their Facebook page. If you do a search for WLFE-DB Radio Network, you'll find them there. Find them under Variety Unlimited. And they also we have a Stream TV channel. We have 3 of them. And if you did notice in the opening commercial, we're on the Variety Unlimited channel, and as well as on twitch.tv/TheBipolarDM. And also, we are a member and proud supporter of Safe Space. And Safe Space is a virtual place for anyone to go to who's in crisis. We are not doctors. We're not psychiatrists. We're not here to solve your problems. We're just here to listen and to give you resources. And so for more information, go to WLFE-DB.com and click on the Safe Space icon, and you'll get hooked up with a bunch of resources right there. The Veterans Podcast Awards is going on right now. Registration has closed, but voting is still available until the 10th of September, 2021, with awards being announced on the 5th of October, 2021. So go to veteranspodcastawards.com and listen to some podcasts and vote for the best ones that you want in different categories. And that's all I got for today. One last thing on news and noteworthy, Patreon. I want to thank my Patreon supporter so much. He has been a blessing to me, and if you want to join in supporting this show as well as some of my other endeavors, please go to patreon.com/BipolarDM. And there you'll find different levels of support and also goodies available at each level. And so check that out. That's patreon.com/BipolarDM. And let's go ahead and bring on our guest. She has been on before. Her name is Erin. And let's go ahead and add her.
Hi.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
I am doing great. Let's kind of catch up a little bit on who you are, just for those of our audience that hadn't seen your previous interview. You grew up, kind of the distinguishing that we found each other on is that you grew up with Dungeons and Dragons, and that's kind of your pedigree. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So I was introduced to Dungeons and Dragons through my dad. We played a second edition where he led the adventurers, myself, my four other siblings, and my mom down on a dungeon crawl, which ended when we accidentally triggered a trap that squashed us from above. But it didn't end there. I later re-entered the adventure when I was in high school. I joined my brother's game, which I was the only female. I did have a friend who played a little bit. One moment, I gotta grab cookies.
Okay. And meanwhile, while she's taking care of those cookies,
I'm back. I just pulled one of the cookies out from the oven because I felt like baking. And so, to recap, I invaded my brother's game night with his friends, but they were very welcoming of me. Then briefly had a hiatus, but then I found a group of friends in college where we played Dungeons and Dragons, which led to homebrew games where we played in person, but then as we scattered to the winds after school, we then started meeting on Roll20 as our platform and then chatted with Discord and Skype. A few different ways, but we made it played for it. So that's kind of my gaming experience in a nutshell from last time.
All right, and what is it that you do now?
So what I'm doing now is I am in the process of setting up my business, Waggish Writer, where I am offering writing services in forms of content. I answer the questions of who, what, where, when, and why. I also write copy where basically I'm rolling a persuasion check on individuals to take a certain call to action. So if you're in D&D, you know that you're trying to convince someone to believe you or to give you an item. That's what I do with my writing. So that's part of it. And a more creative venture I'm still working on setting up is Daring Dice Games. Basically, it's a platform that I'm working on having content to help support people that are getting into the tabletop gaming area, mostly focusing on females, but I want it accessible to all who want to play.
Awesome. So to link the two together, how has Dungeons and Dragons and that battlefield, so to speak, kind of get you ready and prepared for your current career of what you're doing now?
I would say what really drives in Dungeons and Dragons is a sense of risk-taking. Because in Dungeons and Dragons, the only reason you would go on an adventure is you chose to take a risk. And with real life, you have to take a gamble on yourself to take a risk. And for the longest time, I chose the safe path. I could have stayed as a villager, but I decided I wanted to go on an adventure to be a writer of my craft and to live by my words. So I would say really risk-taking is something that from D&D that has really influenced my current endeavors.
Awesome. And let's see. Oh, yeah, actually, one other question is, are you currently playing in any games? You had mentioned that you had been playing in some.
I am not in any active games at the moment, but I have a small group of ladies who are acting as my ladies I bounce ideas off of for my Daring Dice games. And we've played with the idea of trying a text-based adventure since I've only had a handful of times of DMing. I actually did DM a one-shot. I DM'd a homebrew game for my boyfriend when the party got trapped. And so he needed to send people on an adventure to get them untrapped. So he asked me to lead that game. So I did DM. As to me playing as a player, no, not recently.
Okay. Oh, well, that's too bad because it sounds like you're missing out on some great stuff.
I know. I've been going back into your show, and I've just been falling in love with the additional players that are playing in your game, the Bipolar Dragons. It's like, this is the kind of playing I want in on. But it can lead me down a very dangerous hole.
Well, you can if you want to. We do have guest players come on the show, so if you ever want to play, you're welcome to come to the table.
Definitely, if my schedule allows, and if you have a slot that makes it natural for me to enter in, I would love to come in for a session.
Yeah,
or more, depending on how addictive it is.
Yeah, it's like the last three people that came on as guests have stayed on permanently with the crew, so you never can tell how that goes. We kind of have a way of just trapping people in the game. So, but if people had noticed, if they haven't seen the Bipolar Dragons, my play style is very theater of the mind. I have minis, I have terrain. Unfortunately, because of equipment problems, I can't show them on video, so I have to rely on just theater of the mind, imagination, and creating this world. And so this new world that we're playing is in the realm of Ravenloft, which is a gothic horror. And so, okay, looks like Robert's here. Yes, it is addictive.
Thanks, Robert. Very true.
Yep, he's actually one of my players. He is
really?
in Australia, so it's like 5:00 in the morning Monday when he comes on to play with us.
That is pure dedication. I applaud you for doing that.
Oh, and by the way, Robert, today it was 36 degrees Celsius here in Missouri, which is 97 degrees, at least according to my thermostat on my car. So getting a little heat wave here. But, I popped a last minute assignment on you, and you kind of asked for it, which was, I asked you to look into solo gaming and solo play and how that works out. And so let's first answer the question, what is solo adventures?
Shall I start the answer, or do you want to start the answer? So based on the brief window between receiving the assignment and coming on today, what I learned about solo adventuring is when you, the individual, sit down and decide to play a game, and instead of having another person narrating the story for you, it's usually a really random randomizer. Some people use cards that sort of dictate what happens. Some people use dice. And others who are more tech savvy, they look into engines called oracles. And these oracles create randomness that you create the journey as you go, where the computer is sort of like unbiased. It's like, this is what happens. And you are left with the decisions of how do you react to it. So that's it in a very short nutshell.
Yeah, it's basically you're playing Dungeons and Dragons by yourself or some other RPG engine. And you're heavily dependent on these tables, which we call generators. And basically all they are, they're 2 column tables. Column 1 is the dice number, and column 2 is the reaction or result of that roll. And so then what we would do is we roll some dice, look up the column, what is the number there, what's the reaction there, and then we play off of it. Erin, of course, mentioned I'm talking old school. Erin mentioned some new school stuff, which is using oracles and the like online, which are great tools to have. One thing I did find is there's I haven't looked into Mythic yet, which is a solo RPG engine. Not a lot of other stuff is out there, at least not in the free realm, to teach you how to play solo. I'm kind of doing this on my own. Okay. Sorry.
Okay, for a second I thought you froze. I was like, oh no.
No. No, I mean, I meant that more like a kind of a question statement saying, did you have any difficulty finding, like I did, finding free resources on how to play solo? I mean, the actual how to do it.
Okay. I didn't quite register it as a question. Sometimes I have trouble hearing things, understanding what they mean, and then responding back. It's kind of what I was born with. And so when I did my brief look, it's like there wasn't quite like a huge archive of things that were free. I did take a visit to one, like when I was looking at this website called Drive Through RPG.
Oh, yes.
Most of the content that it was like, there were, some of them was priced, like, but it wasn't like really big numbers. Like some of them were less than 10, but I did see there were some free things. And kind of the thing is, I'm a very picky player when it comes to the games that I play. I'm a very picky reader to what I read. So it's like, what if there was a really good game I wanted to test out, but there's a price tag with it? It's like, do I buy the price tag, or do I just try something free and see what happens?
Yeah, and I've tried a couple of the free ones, and they're pretty good. They're fun little solo adventures. They're more like you remember the Choose Your Own Adventure novels?
Yes.
That's how they're written. Except you use dice rolls instead of turn the page, such and such, and so that's how they run. Is they run similar to the old Choose Your Own Adventure books, and for most part they're pretty well written. The Frozen Offerings, which is available through RPG Drive-Thru and also through DM's Guild, is a free one, or pay what you want. I can't remember which one it is, but it was a very well written, and it was only, I want to say it's 25 pages long, but I actually got almost over 40 minutes of play time before my character died in the game on it. So it actually plays out pretty good too. So they are. So don't. Yeah. So if you want to try something out, try the free stuff. If you like it, then go ahead and jump into the pay to play. Especially some of the ones out there are pretty good. A lot of good awards on them too. I've noticed.
Okay.
But what are some of the shortfalls of playing by yourself, though? Let's talk about that.
Oh, I can have so many things. So something I'm just going to draw back on my gaming experience. Like one of the reasons, the reason I really enjoy playing with people, it's sort of like it's me being able to spend time with friends and sort of being able to react to them based on it. In one of the campaigns that I played with before I exited out of the plane for a break, is I had a drow barbarian who was basically went onto her ship because she saw it in her vision, but she was really not sure about what she was doing on the ship. And then there was this, one of the players was a water genasi, that monk. And so they sort of bonded over sparring with each other, because as barbarians, they valued strength and speed. Then unfortunate at one point of the campaign, the monk died, and it was really emotional for me. So it's when you play with a group of people, sometimes you lose the line between the character and the player, and it can really draw emotions. I nearly cried at a part of it, and it's I don't cry often. I am an emotional person, but I don't cry often. But at that point, I was so invested in my character that it's it evokes reaction. So when I'm around about what I was trying to draw to is, when you do solo, you do miss the part of being able to play off people's interactions, because you're in this world experiencing it together. And in solo, you just have the characters you have in your mind, or only one character you have in your mind.
Yeah, and that is the big thing that you do not get from solo play, which is the human interaction, a human element, which is what is probably one of the biggest draws to Dungeons and Dragons and most tabletop RPGs, is that social interaction. We are doing great. Smile, dog.
A great smile.
Yeah. Is that social aspect, because I don't know how it was for you, but for me growing up in high school, it was pretty rough, and I didn't have a lot of friends. But I was able to bond over Dungeons and Dragons and make friends through there, and continue to. I still have problems making friends, but I've been meeting people through now Discord and stuff like that, and playing Dungeons and Dragons worldwide. And it's not quite the same as in person, but you still get some of that human element of it, though. And But yeah, that's what's lacking in the solo game is that. So, we have a question. Yes. Go ahead and ask that question. And while we're waiting on that, what are some of the other drawbacks of solo play? We've got the human element that we're missing out on. What else do you think that we kind of miss out on with the solo play?
So something that is like when you're in solo play, you are established into a world that the game says. I feel I can't quite say that I've done the research to back it up, but I feel that when you're in a game environment where you're talking to the DM, you can have a little bit of a sense of how you can customize your character, or at least a setting of like what you're getting yourself into. With solo play, without that communication, you don't really have a sense. You're just going to put things together that you recommend and hopefully know what you're doing when you go in. So that's at least something that I think of when I think about solo play. It's like you don't have someone to help you interpret what the game is going to be.
Yeah, and that's a funny thing is you really are dependent on your own imagination, and you don't get to play off somebody else's imagination too, which is kind of the part of the story building experience of Dungeons and Dragons is that collaborative storytelling. And so, one idea sparks another, which sparks another, and when you're doing it by yourself, you kind of miss out on that too. Let's see. Smile Dog has a question here. Who's your favorite actor? Kind of off topic, but let's say Sir Patrick Stewart is mine.
That's a tough question. Kind of the first character that comes to mind is Viggo Mortensen, who I might have butchered his last name, but the person who played Aragorn, it's like he was kind of and Orlando Bloom were my top two characters from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Male leads. Arwen is my female lead favorite.
Well, it's funny. It was that first thought before I said mine was Viggo Mortensen also.
We got another connection.
That was my first gut check. Was like, yeah, it was Viggo. It's because he's done such great work, and not just that, but like History of Violence. He was great in that movie and so many other ones too. So, all right, okay. Getting back to topic on hand. Let's see, we're talking about some of the flaws. What about the positives of playing solo play? One big one is time. You can pick up a game whenever you got some downtime. That's a big one right there.
Like time and also like how the storyline, because I will admit I'm someone who really enjoys the story. And so one of my pet peeves of like with players is sometimes it's like I know that when you're in a group, like you're with friends, you want to catch up with them, but it's like I'm just really invested in the story. So sometimes it's like, can we keep the chit chat a little bit so we can see where the story goes? So like if I have a good book, I want to keep reading it. I want to find out where it goes. So that's at least one thing that I think of is that it is very heavy it's focused on the story, but like, as we mentioned in the drawbacks, you miss some social interactions. And it's like, even now it's like, I miss the game.
So what about some obstacles to gameplay? What are some things that get in the way that playing solo kind of gets around? Resources.
That would be the first thing I say, because I honestly did not hear about solo adventure until you mentioned it. Yeah. And then I did a little digging. It's like the first time I've encountered something like that would be like choose your own adventure. Mm-hmm. But I would have a hard time because it's like, as a reader, I follow the natural order of the pages. And so it's like, my problem is like, I want the story to go a certain way. So it's like I become my own monster in enjoying the storyline, because it's like, I feel like it should be one way and one way only. And don't make me choose. Don't make me make the choices of it all.
Well, or you come with option 3, they give you 2 options and you come up with a third option, which is pretty viable too, but wish you could play it out, and so that's, totally see that, which actually is a plus for playing solo, is that you run into those roadblocks. You have to be a little creative, because I was playing one where I ran into a dead end on a missing person. Nobody knew anything. They didn't know where they were at. They didn't know any clues. And finally, I got lucky on some dice rolls and got a suspect. But sometimes you can kind of write yourself into a corner with solo play. And so that's one of those things that are kind of a hazard, so to speak, in that. Have you ever written yourself into a corner before?
Yes. And also I tend to, especially when I'm working on something that I am trying to like refine and like turn it into something that looks somewhat of what you would find in a book, but then it's like, oh, what if I write it this way? So I kind of write myself into different corners instead of the corner I'm supposed to be heading into. So that's kind of around a different answer to the question, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's written anything for any amount of time has written themselves into a corner, at some point where you're just kind of like, I don't know where to go from here. And sometimes you just kind of got to back up and go at it again. And what are some things, I mean, you haven't looked into it as much as I have, and I'm only like a week ahead of you. So, so I'm not having much experience. So I'm only about a week start ahead of you on this solo play. But what you have seen so far, what are some things that would help make it more playable?
Probably the thing that comes to mind is I find that watching videos is really helpful. So something that comes to mind is having these like free tutorials saying like, hey, you want to be a solo adventurer? Here's kind of the basics of what it is, and start like from a basic introduction before branching out, because as I mentioned, there's a few different ways to solo play, like journaling, open-ended experiences, dungeon delving. I'm just pulling out words that I found in my brief research. And so it's like just kind of having a gateway, like the intro gateway and then the adventure gateway.
Yeah. And that's a pretty cool right there. Let's see. Let's go ahead and we're going to go to a quick commercial, and then when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more, and then we'll kind of tie things up.
Sounds good.
Oh, yeah. Life just got sweeter now that WLFE DB has merchandise. Show your support by purchasing your t-shirts for WLFE, Paratalk Radio, Inside the Drag Closet, and more. But it doesn't stop there. T-shirts, coffee mugs, tanks, buttons, cloth bags, and more. Go to WLFE-DB.com. On the top bar, click on the merchandise tab, and bam, there you go. You got merch. Support the shows. WLFE-DB.com.
Welcome back, and as we are having a conversation with Erin about solo play, and we'll also talk a little bit about duets, and welcome back. And
Glad to be back.
Now, I didn't ask you about this one, but have you come across duet playing?
Nope. I have not come across duet play.
Yeah, that is where it's two players, a dungeon master and a single player. So that's another form of play too. Also, is duets. And go ahead.
I actually did come across something back when it's like I am interested in being a dungeon master. I found a book called The Mini Dungeon Thing, which is basically a collection of it. And I did come across one adventurer that put a DM and a player by themselves. So I did encounter it once, but I didn't know it was a term for it.
Yeah, they usually call it duet.
That is my count.
Yeah. But yeah, duets are fun to play too. A little bit easier to organize as well. Instead of working with 6 or 7 people's different schedules, you're only working with 2. And so it's a little bit easier to get a game together. And kind of cool thing about duets is that, unlike solo play, you are bouncing thoughts and stuff like that off of each other, and playing off of each other's ideas. And so, duets are a lot of fun. They're available on the dmsguild.com. That's a great resource. It's dmsguild.com is one place. They're also connected to RPG Drive-Thru. Now, both of those sites are actually sites of Wizard of the Coast. So they're actually D&D sites. So you get
Ah,
official
I did
content.
not pick up on that one when I was looking at the drive-through RPG. So
Yes.
thanks
So
for increasing my knowledge.
so it is. So a lot of it, even though it's not all canon, it's a lot of official content in there, especially with the old stuff they got on there. Like if you want to play first edition, they got a lot of the modules from first edition available. If you want to play second edition, 3.5, 4, they got all of them there. They got other games as well, like Call of Cthulhu and stuff like that. So it's a great resource. A lot of it's pretty cheap. Some of it, and all of it goes towards supporting artists too. People are writing this on their own, and they're just getting a couple bucks for each sale. So it does go towards a good thing, helping people who are trying to support themselves through their writing. And so yeah, that's kind of my PSA for, and it's an unpaid PSA. I'm not endorsed by DM's Guild in any way. So, but that's just my PSA on that. What do you think? Let's shift gears here and talk a little bit about Dungeons and Dragons as a whole. What do you think the future of Dungeons and Dragons is? Everybody's talking about what's 6th edition going to be like. What do you kind of think the next evolution of Dungeons and Dragons, what direction it's going in?
I think that's a really good question. Like currently with the 5e setup, currently we seem to be seeing a lot of like additions, like build. Like there's a lot of modules like coming out. Like there was this one of the dragon about expanding upon the world of dragons. There is Volvo's Guide to Monsters, which I picked up. And to add to our D&D collection here at home. And so there's a lot of things that they can spend. So I'd be really curious about, would they expand how DMing occurs? Because traditionally, Dungeon Masters usually are one person. But I have come across, like in the past game I had played in, there were 2 people who were Dungeon Masters for each other that led in a bigger group. So they took turns switching back and forth. So I wonder if 5e will 6e. I'm confusing my numbers. Yeah. That's okay. But I would wonder, could there be more storytellers to it? And so I'd be very curious to see if that's a development that they think about.
That would be pretty interesting. I know I think it would behoove them to go after the Piazzo's model with Pathfinder, where they released it for playtesting and stuff like that for the masses before they released it. That was one thing that was great about Pathfinder was the playtesting, what that was done before the game was released to get all the bugs out and stuff like that. So that would be one thing I'd be love to, if they do come up with a 6th edition, to get my hands on a playtest just to see kind of what the mechanics are like. I think they're going to be, they may go back on combat. I mean, this one's pretty combat light. And hello,
Guinevere. Or Genevieve. I'm not sure how to say it. Genevieve. Thank you. I tend to say things as I see them.
Yeah, I have a bad habit of skimming. It gets me into a lot of trouble, especially with text messages when I only read half of them. So I've gotten some big trouble because of that. But let's see, what else about the game? What about the role playing in the game? I mean, it's really, the pendulum has really shifted away from combat and towards role playing. You think that maybe in the next edition they may switch a little bit back towards more combat oriented again, or you think they're just going to ride the wave of what's working?
That's a really good question. I suppose it depends on a lot of playstyles and where they are at. Example, for people who are playing for the first time, it might be just really simple for them to do the combat, such as a fighter, like attacking with a weapon, while being a wizard or a cleric who has to figure out spells. It's a little more difficult. And so like when it comes to role playing, it probably would really depend on the experience of the player. Like someone really well experienced might just be really go into character, and someone who's not as experienced might not have that. But probably what's going to influence that decision is going to be how people respond to those that they are playing, like example, Critical Role. Not only is it just combat, but they do an incredible job role-playing their roles. They
Mhm.
still have fun. They're a group of friends still playing, but the role-playing, like, yes, they're voice actors, but they become really invested in their characters. So it's really the models that we see before each other really might influence where the industry goes.
Yeah, I think shows like Critical Role, Acquisitions Incorporated, and the such out there have made a huge influence on Dungeons and Dragons, especially with it being this public view of it. And I'm very curious to see how their influence on the game is going to affect for the next generation of Dungeons and Dragons. It'll be very interesting to see how that is. You have any thoughts about that?
I would say there would probably be a lot of creativity that probably would come from it. Example, Critical Role. It was a homebrew game that is launched into something that they released campaign settings for Tal'Dorei, the first campaign one. Wildmount is released. And I know it's really inspired me to want to crack my hand at trying to create a campaign setting for a world that I am envisioning, that I want a campaign book, but I also want to share stories about this world with the idea that this is the world. Create new legends that I have just placed before you. So that's it's really inspirational, and it really, I feel, will drive a lot of people if they have the courage to take that step.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Some great videos. Guy Schleimer, I had interviewed him. He has some great videos on how to be a great GM. And he has one video that came out recently about getting over your fear of DMing, and was a great video about that. You know, how to get past yourself and everything, and to get out there and put yourself out there as a dungeon master or game master. And so, from your experience game mastering, what do you think is kind of some of the big things to get past to stand behind that screen?
Well, from my experience, I've had probably a total of 3. One of them was kind of continuation. One of them was one session, sat down, played it, got it all done. And so the biggest thing is to be okay with adjusting plans. I'm very much a planner. I like things to go. But what I really focused about this latest session I DM'd is I need to let go of some of my plans, so then because the thing is, when you're playing, is you have to think about timing, especially in one shots when you want to be able to complete it. And so some of the puzzles, some of the challenges that I had is I'm just going to rewrite it and not let them see the script that I had prepped. And just because main thing is I want them to have fun. And if it means bending some rules, tweaking some monster stats, maybe white lies regarding the dice roll. As long as it tells a really fun story, everyone has this fun time. That's what it means. My plans can go out the window, but as long as everyone leaves with smiles, that's what's most important as a DM, that everyone has fun.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would agree that that's the role of the Dungeon Master, which is to provide a good experience. Not only the framework of the story, but also the experience as well for the players at the table. And so I agree a lot with that. And also with the skill of improv, because I've had many of adventures go off the rails right out the gate, and have to toss my notes to the side because the players just chucked out what they didn't want, didn't want to do this, and they went on and did their own thing. And so improv is a great skill to have when you're done as a dungeon master, is to be able to think on your feet. And that's some of the fun things about dungeon mastering is some of the crazy things that happens. You have any stories of any crazy stuff that your players have done while you're dungeon mastering?
Well, I wasn't part of this game, but I was of a listening ear. Is in this homebrew game, it's set in the world of Hyrule Legend of Zelda. They got shrunk into Bakori size. And so one of the players, a druid, decided he was going to wild shape into a squirrel. Well, what they learned is the shrink is proportional. So instead of a squirrel that we would imagine, he's shrunk down to a size of a squirrel. It was one of the experiences that just made me lose my mind, laughing my butt off for that. That is absolutely perfect gameplay. That was awesome. One second while I grab those cookies.
Okay. If you're interested in duets, there's several free ones or pay as you go ones available on DM's Guild as well. But also check the internet as well, because there's some great content out there to look for. A lot of places are kind of tough to get through. I mean, my bane of existence is Reddit, and Pinterest. There's so much great material on there, but I can't download anything off of it or get access to it. And I have a lot of problems with that. So yeah, there's some great sites out there for solo and duet plays. Let's go ahead, and before we tie this up, do you got any future projects that you got coming up that you want to announce?
So one of the future projects that I have coming up is with my work for Daring Dice Games. I'm going to be starting to create pre-made character sheets. These are character sheets that I create for the love of creating characters, because I love the concept. And I will be putting it on my Daring Dice Games. It's a Buy Me a Coffee page, and I'm going to be creating posts to put links to these documents, download free. I want people to be able to have fun, whether it's they need an NPC to use or they just want to pull a character. And so that's something I'm going to be working on putting up. I have 2 fighters, I already brainstormed, and a lot more characters I am loving to do. There will be on 5th edition play sheets, which free to access. It's okay to use as long as no barrier to access on any of that type of content.
Excellent. All right. And where can they find this?
They can find this. Give me 1 second. I am putting this in the chat so that I can say it aloud. So they can find this at www.buymeacoffee.com/Waggish Waggish is spelled Weggish. Writer Writer. And it's all one word.
Okay. That's good you put it in there, so I was able to cut and paste and put it up. There we go. So
thank you so much.
That's where we're able to find you.
Yes, that's where I'll be putting stuff up. It's still a work in progress. I might have some bumps, but that's where I'm planning to put that content, because I love the game. I wanted to help others be able to get into the game that really has started. It's really what's helped me as a writer. It's really this world of Dungeons and Dragons, because it's really what makes the world so amazing to go into. It's all the care and attention to details there. That's what Dungeons and Dragons taught me.
Yeah, and all the tools that are available, too, for helping you create these worlds available, in the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Player's Handbook, Monster's Manual, so you can really take those tools and really flesh out a world. It's fantastic, and a great springboard for creative thought. So, all right, well, we're going to go ahead and tie this up. Thank you so much, Erin, and we're going to go ahead and put you in the back real quick.
Okay.
All right. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to the Bipolar DMs. This is your host, Jason. Watch us live Saturdays, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on WLFE-DB.com, on Strim TV, on Variety Unlimited channel, as well as oh man, I'm having a total Twitch TV. I'm sorry. Twitch.tv/TheBipolarDM. I should have that one written down. You can also listen to the show anytime, anywhere, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Be sure to, if you have any questions, comments, or topic suggestions, email me at thebipolardm@gmail.com. Visit my webpage, thebipolardm.com, as well as my Facebook page and my group page as well. Thank you so much for tuning in, and this is the Bipolar DM. We're saying to you all, remember, take your meds.
Thank you for listening to the Bipolar DM. They love sharing thoughts and ideas. See you next week, 7 p.m. Saturdays on WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows, and that makes for great talk radio. WLFE Digital Broadcast Network is on TV. You can watch all of our shows on WLFE-DB.com. Check out our channels: Paranormal View for all of your paranormal type shows, LGBTQ Friends for all of our LGBTQ shows, Variety Unlimited for all other shows. It runs 24/7 right on WLFE-DB.com. You'll even catch the lives, all in one place. Never miss an episode, past or future. WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.